Dubey sir, you can unmute and start the video, please.
Okay. So I'll just share the screen. This is a conversation between Krishnji and Professor Ellen Anderson. He was a professor of philosophy at the University of San Diego. And Krishnji has a number of dialogues with him. I like this particular conversation quite interesting, so I thought I'll share with you. Just give me a minute, I'll share the screen. Are you able to see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Krishnamurti, in our last conversation, we were beginning to talk about consciousness and its relation to death in the context of living as a total movement. And we even touched on the word reincarnation toward the end when we had to draw our conversation to its conclusion. I do hope that we can begin to continue there.
You see, one of the factors in death is the mind is so frightened. We are so frightened of that very word, and nobody talks about it. I mean, it isn't a daily conversation. It is something to be avoided, something that is inevitable. For God's sake, keep it as far away as possible.
We even paint corpses to make them look as though they're not.
That's the most absurd.
Yes.
Now, what we are discussing, sir, is indeed the understanding of death, its relation to living, and this thing called love. I cannot possibly understand the immensity, and it is immense, what this thing called death, unless there is real freedom from fear. That's why we talked some time ago about the problem of fear. Without really freeing the mind, unless the mind frees itself from fear, there is no possibility of understanding the extraordinary beauty, strength, and the vitality of death.
It's a very, very remarkable way to put it. The vitality of death. And yet, normally we regard it as the total negation of life.
That's
Yes.
right. So, I mean, if we are inquiring into this question of death, fear must be completely non-existent in us. Then I can proceed. Then I can find out what death means. We touched a little bit on reincarnation, the belief that is maintained throughout the East, and which has no reality in daily life. It's like going to church every Sunday and being mischievous for the rest of the 6 days. So if a person who is really serious, really attentive, goes into this question of death, he must understand what it means, the quality of it, not the ending of it. That's what we're going to a little bit discuss. The ancient Egyptians, the pharaohs and all the first dynasty till the 18th and so on, they prepared for death. they said, we will cross that river with all our goods, with all our chariots, with all our belongings, with all our property, with all our... And therefore their caves, their tombs were filled with all the things of their daily life. Corn, you know. So living was only a means to an ending, dying. That's one way of looking at it. The other is reincarnation, which is the Indian Asiatic outlook. And there is this whole idea of resurrection of the Christians. Reborn, carried by Gabriel angel and all that to heaven, and you will be... Now, what is the fact? These are all theories, suppositions, beliefs, and non-facts. I mean, it's supposed to be born, Jesus come out of the grave, resurrected physically. That is just a belief. There were no cameras there. There were no 10 people say, yes, I saw it. It's only somebody imagine. We'll go into that little later. So there is this living and preparing for death. Is the ancient Egyptian state. Then there is the reincarnation. Then there is the resurrection. Now, if one is so frightened, if one is a leap, then what is it? What is it that does? Apart from the organism. The organism may continue, if you look after it very carefully, for 80 or 90, 100 years. If you have no disease, if you have no accidents, if there is way of living sanely, healthily, perhaps you lost 100 years or 110 years. And then what? You live 100 years. For what? For this kind of life? Fighting, quarreling, bickering, bitterness, and anger, jealousy, futility, a meaningless existence. It is meaningless existence as we are living.
And in terms of our previous remarks, this is all the content of consciousness. Yes.
So, what is it that does? And what is it I'm frightened? One is frightened. What is it one is frightened of? Death. Losing the know, losing my wife, losing my house, losing all the things I've acquired, losing this content of consciousness. So, can the content of consciousness totally be empty? You follow, sir?
Yes, I do.
What is the living? The dying is the living. When the content is totally empty. That means no attachment. It is not a brutal cutting off, but the understanding of attachment, the understanding of dependence, the understanding of acquisition, power, position, anxiety, all that. The emptying of that is the real death. And therefore, the emptying of consciousness means the consciousness which has created its own limitation by its content comes to an end.
Yes, yes. Yes, you have. I was following you very carefully. And it occurred to me that there is a radical relation between birth and death.
Death.
That the two, when they are looked upon as moments in a total cycle, are not grasped at the depth level that you're beginning to speak about.
Yes.
Am I correct?
That's correct.
Good. Please do go on.
So death becomes a living when the content of consciousness, which makes its own frontier, its own limitation, comes to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And that this is not a theory, not a speculative intellectual grasp, but the actual perception of attachment. I'm taking that as an example. Being attached to something, property, man, woman, the book I have written, or the knowledge I've acquired, the attachment. And the battle to be detached. Because attachment brings pain. Therefore, I say to myself, I must be detached, and the battle begins. And the whole content of my consciousness is this, the battle which we described previously.
Yes.
Now, can that content be empty itself? Not emptied by an act of perception. Yeah? Empty itself, which means can this whole content be observed with its unconscious content? You follow, sir?
Yes, I do. I'm
There
thinking.
is conscious, I can be consciously aware of the content of my consciousness.
Yes.
My house, my property, my wife, my children, my job, the things I've acquired, the things I've learned, I can be consciously aware. But also there is deeper content in the very recesses of my mind, which is racial, collective, acquired, the things that unconsciously I gathered, the influences, the pressures, the strains of living in a world that's corrupt, all that is seeped in, all that is gathered in there.
Both personal and impersonal.
Yes. That's
This includes then what the depth psychologists are calling collective.
I don't know what they call it.
As well as the personal consciousness.
Collective as well.
Right.
So that is that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can all that be exposed? Because this is very important. Because if I really want to go, if the mind really wants to understand and grasp the full meaning of death, the vastness of the great quality of a mind that says, yes, that's him. It gives it tremendous vitality, energy. So my question is, can the mind be aware totally of all the content, hidden as well as the open? The collective, the person, the racial, the transition. The whole of it. Now, we say it is possible through analysis.
Yes, we do.
I said analysis paralysis. Because every analysis must be perfect, complete. And you are frightened that it might not be complete. And if you have not completed it, you carry it over as a memory, which will then analyze the next instant. So each analysis brings its own incompleteness.
Oh, certainly. Yes.
Therefore, it is a total paralysis.
In following what you're saying, I'm very taken with what we usually regard as death, which has a very clear relationship to what you've said about the endless series of analytical acts.
Yes.
We regard death as a terminus in terms of a line.
Right.
And
because we think laterally.
we think laterally, exactly. But what you're saying is, on the contrary, we must regard this vertically.
Yes.
And in the regarding of it vertically, we no longer see, please check me if I'm off here, we no longer see death as simply a moment of termination to a certain trajectory of repetition. But there is a total qualitative change here, which is not the cessation of something that we have to regret, as though we'd lost something valuable.
Yes, I'm leaving my wife and
Right.
children.
Right.
And my property, my blasted blank account. Yes, you
Yes,
see, sir,
yes.
this is really, if one can go very deeply into this, there is this content, which is my consciousness, acquired, inherited, imposed, influenced, propaganda, attachment, detachment, anxiety, fear, pleasure, all. And also the hidden things. I'm asking myself, since analysis is really paralysis, not an intellectual supposition, but actually it is not a complete act. Analysis can never produce complete act. The very word analysis means to break up, the breaking up.
To loosen up.
Loosen up, break it up. Therefore, I reject that totally. I won't analyze because I see this, the stupidity, the paralytic process. Then what happens? You follow? Because that is the tradition. Introspective or paralysis, analysis by myself or by a professional, which is now the fact, and so on. So what if the mind sees the truth of it and therefore analysis falls away, then what is the mind to do with the content?
Yes, I do see that.
We know what the content is. We don't have eternally described. Now, what is it? It has to be empty. Otherwise, it's mere continuity.
No, there's no use analyzing what is already there, because that will not change what is there in any way, shape, or form. That seems to be very, very plain. Although perhaps you would for a moment explain why we simply refuse to see that. We do believe that an analytical inquiry is ordered to a revelation.
No, sir, you
that.
can see it in a minute. Analysis implies and the analyzer and the analyst.
Yes.
The analyzer is the analyst.
Yes, we're back to the observer and observed work.
I'm analyzing my anger. Who is the analyst? Part of the fragment, which is anger. So the analyzer pretends to be different from the analyst. But when I see the truth that the analyzer is the analyst, then the totally different action takes place. then there is no conflict between the analyzer and the analyzer. There's instant action, a perception, which is the ending and going beyond the what.
The reason I asked
Quite right.
for the explanation was because of the concern raised earlier about knowledge.
After all,
What-
the observer is knowledge.
Yes. I was concerned that study in its proper form was not regarded in the context of our discussion as unprofitable as such.
No, no.
We don't mean that.
We didn't even discuss it.
Exactly.
That's
Yes,
so
fine.
obvious.
Yes, do go ahead. Well, yes, it is obvious in terms of our discussion, but the thing that concerns me is that so ingrained
Of course.
is the notion
Of course.
that, for instance, in the story I told about when I came to hear you years ago, I began doing analysis while I was listening to your words, and consequently, I could hardly end up with anything qualitatively differently from what I came in with. But you see, I didn't see that at the time.
No.
And in our videotaping, our conversations here, this will be listened to. And when we say, yes, about knowledge, this is obvious. In the context of our conversation, it is. But then I'm thinking
Not
of
only in the context of our conversation,
it is as such.
It's like
Yes.
that.
Exactly. I couldn't agree. But immediately I flashed back to my own behavior. And I know that I was not alone in that, because I listened to other conversations regarding it at the time. But yes, I see what you mean now about analysis as such. It
The
seems to me
analysis
very
implies
clear.
the analyzer and the analyzer.
Precisely.
And the analyzer is the analyzer. And also analysis implies time, duration. I must take time to unearth, to uncover, and it take me the rest of my life.
This is a confusion we have about death too. Death's relation to time.
That's
We
what I'm
have-
coming to.
Yes, of course. Yes, please do. Please.
Yes. So the mind perceiving discards analysis completely.
Mhm.
Not because it's not profitable, not because it doesn't get me what I want, but I see the impossibility of emptying consciousness of its content. If the mind approaches through that channel,
Mhm.
analyzer, tie, and the utter futility at the end of 40 years, I'm still analyzed.
And the content of my consciousness is not qualitatively changed.
Staying at home.
No, it's become intensified
Yeah,
in its
that's-
corruption. Yeah.
So, but the mind must see its content, must be totally aware, not fragments of it. How is that? You follow, sir?
Yes, I do.
Because it's very important in relation to death. Because content of my consciousness is consciousness. That consciousness is me, my ego, my saying I and you, we and they. Whether they, the communists, they, the Catholic, they, the Protestant, or the Hindu, they and we. So it is very important to find out that it's possible to empty consciousness of its content, which means the dying to the me.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, I do.
Because that is the me.
This is where the terror starts.
That's where
Precisely. There's the intuition that if I die to the content of this consciousness, that I am wiped out.
I, who have worked, who have lived a righteous life or unrighteous life, who have done so much, mischief or good. I have struggled to better myself. I've been so kind, so gentle, so angry, so bitter. And when you say, empty your consciousness, you're asking me to die for all that. So you are touching at the very root of fear.
Yes,
At the
exactly.
root of terror, of not being. And yes, that's it, sir.
Mm.
And I want to immortalize that me.
Mhm. Yes.
I do it through books, writing a book and say, famous book. Or I paint. Or through pain, through works, through good acts, through building this or that, I immortalize myself.
This has very pernicious effects within the family,
Oh,
because we must have a son
oh,
in order to
carry on.
immortalize the name in time.
Therefore, the family becomes a danger.
Exactly. Mhm. Mhm.
So, look what we have done, sir. The ancient Egyptians immortalized themselves, made their life immortal by thinking, carrying on,
Perpetuity.
perpetuity. And the robbers come and tear it all to pieces. Tutankhamun means merely a mask, golden mask with a mummy. I know so. So man has sought immortality through works, through every way to find that which is immortal, that is beyond mortality. Right?
It's a very remarkable thing that the word immortal is a negative.
That,
It is.
not mortal.
Yes. It's not saying what it is.
We're
Yeah.
going to find out what it is.
Good.
I need to put in mind. You follow
Yes,
this a
yes.
very, very serious thing. It isn't a plaything between two people who are enjoying discussion. It's a tremendously important.
Yes, I was laughing.
Oh, I'm not. I'm not going to
At the
laugh.
irony of it, that inherent in the structure of that word, there is a warning, and we just go right through the red light.
Right.
Yes. So please go on.
So, what is immortality? Not the book.
Oh no.
Not the painting which I have done. Not the going to the moon and putting some idiotic flag up there. Not living a righteous life or not living a righteous life. So what is immortal? The cathedrals are beautiful, marvelous cathedrals. In stone, earthquake comes, gone. You build, you carve out of marble a marvelous thing of Michelangelo. Earthquake, fire, destroy. Some lunatic comes home with a hammer and breaks it out. So it is in none of those.
Right.
Because that is capable of being destroyed. Every statue becomes a dead thing. Every poem, every painting. So what? Then one asks, what is immortality? It's not in the building. Just see it. It's not in the cathedral. It's not in the savior which you have invented, which thought has invented. Not in the gods that man has created out of his own image. Then what is immortal? Because that is related to consciousness and to death. Unless I find that out, death is a test.
Of course. Of course.
I have tried to immortalize myself, become immortal by the thought that there is a Brahman, there is a God, there is eternality, there is a nameless one, and I will do everything to approach him. Therefore, I'll lead a righteous life. Therefore, I'll pray, I will beg, I will obey, I will live a life of poverty, chastity, and so on, so on, so on. In order to have that immortal reality with me. But I know all that is the born of thought. Right, sir?
Yes, as
So
soon.
wait, sir.
Yes.
See what
Yes.
happens.
Yes.
So I see thought and its products are the children of barren women.
Precisely.
See what takes place. Then what is immortal? The beauty in the church, not I built the church, the beauty in the cathedral, the beauty in the poem, the beauty in the sculpture, the beauty, not the object of beauty.
The beauty itself.
That is immortal. And I cannot grasp that. Mind cannot grasp it. Because beauty is not in the field of consciousness.
Mhm. You see, what you've said, again, stands it all on its head. We think when something dies that we've cherished, that is beautiful. That beauty dies in some sense with that which has passed away.
Passed away.
Actually, it's the feeling of being bereft of that beauty that I regarded as my privilege to have personal access to.
Yeah.
The belief that that has perished, not simply being lost, because what is lost is by its nature predisposed to be found, but to perish is to be wiped out utterly, isn't it? And so the belief is deep.
Oh, very, very.
Extremely deep with respect to what we mean by perish. In fact, the word isn't used very often. It's frightening. It's a very frightening word. We always talk about losing. Hardly ever do we say something perishes. Now, back to what I mentioned about standing it on its head. The image came to my mind as a metaphor. I hope not one of those images we've been talking about, that a beauty, rather than being imprisoned and therefore taken down to the utter depths of nullity when the thing perishes, has simply let it go. In some sense, beauty has let this expression go. That is upside down from what is usually thought.
I know.
And it's probably let it go in precisely on time.
That's right.
That's what's so marvelous. Yeah.
So, immortality, we have said, is within the field of time.
The one field.
Right?
Yes.
The field of time.
Yes.
And death is also then in the field of time. Because I have created through thought the things of time. And death is the ending or the beginning of a state which is timeless. Of that I'm frightened. So I want everything preserved in the field of time. You follow that?
Yes, yes, we think it could.
And that is what we call immortal. Statue, the Pope, the church, the cathedral, and I see also all that is corrupt, destroyed by one accident or by an earthquake. Everything's gone. So, immortality is not within the field of time. And time is thought.
Of course. Yes, that follows.
Of course. So anything that thought creates must be within the field of time. And yet thought is trying to seek immortality, which is immortality of itself and the things it has created. See, you.
Yes.
So then the problem is, can the mind see all this? See it, not imagine that it's seeing.
No, actually see it. Yes, the remark I made before when you began saying the field time, and I said the one field, I didn't mean that the field of time, as you've described it, is the one field, but that we could be so appalling,
blind,
mistaken and blind,
ignorant,
and, that the field of time is another fragment, and it's the only field. And what really struck me was this misuse of thought generates the most appalling avarice.
Yes, sir.
I'm walling myself up in stone. Yes, please.
So the mind perceiving all this, if it is alert, if it has been watchful all the time that we've been discussing, must inevitably see the whole content exposed without any effort. It's like reading a map. You spread it out and look. But if you want to go in a direction, then you don't look at the whole map. Then you say, I want to go from here to there, the direction is there, so many miles, and you don't look the rest. What we're asking is not no direction, but just look. Look at the content of your consciousness without direction, without choice. Be aware of it without any exertion of discernment. Be choicelessly aware of this extraordinary man. Then that choiceless awareness gives you the tremendous energy to go beyond. But you need energy to go beyond.
Yes, Prasad bhai, please go ahead.
Yes, are you able to hear my voice?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Dubeji. Here in this video, Krishnaji is talking about, not about the death of the body, because we all going to die sooner or later. We all know that the body deteriorates with time. But here Krishnaji is talking about being free to look at the content of our consciousness very, very clearly without any direction, without any choice, just to see. And that seeing is the real freedom. And that will not come by trying to see, but when we are very curious to look inward at whatever is going on without trying to change it, what Krishnaji calls choiceless awareness. So in that, there is some kind of refreshment, renew happens. And all the content may be there, but it doesn't create any extra burden on us because we can see clearly. And that seeing is the real freedom. And that freedom may come for people who are very passionate to look inward and not with effort. This is the real challenge which Krishnaji is talking about, mostly about, and in that there is a beauty, love, freedom, happiness, all that exists when the mind is just seeing without trying to change. Only what is, not what should be, not making a conflict out of it. So this seeing is the real teaching of Krishnamurti, and in that there is a renewal happens every day, and it is like being born every day, fresh, not carrying on the burden of the knowledge or the experiences which we have. Okay, I have said enough right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Dinesh, unmute yourself.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Yes.
This is very interesting topic. And first of all, I would like to briefly read the essence of the total dialogue, because there are so many aspects they have tried. And that's why it is essential that we should see also the essence of this dialogue. JK has linked this dialogue about death to the end of consciousness. So he has linked death to the end of consciousness. And we are having concepts about death which are little bit different. Consciousness, according to JK, is content of consciousness, means all your past conditioning, memory recordings, possessions, relationships, etc., and all the details of it. This we know. Now, what is death? Death about which mind normally is frightened to talk. Consider it as a total negation of life. We consider death as total negation of life. Means I am not there, I will not be there. Now JK says, to understand death, quality of death, not the ending of death. Extraordinary beauty, strength and vitality of death, one should be really free from the fear. Here he has said that one should be free of the fear. This, I should not say this is a condition, but this is a very essential point which one should know, that one should be very free from fear. So if one is not frightened, organism may die, say after 100 years. But if one has lived healthily, sanely, etc., then what? One is fearful of losing the known. House, property, material possession, wife, etc., and content of consciousness, which is me. So can the content of consciousness be totally emptied? Then dying is living. So he says if the content of consciousness can be emptied, then it is dying is living. In this process, analysis is paralysis because knowledge has limitations and analyzer is observer, which is knowledge. Therefore, the mind which is perceiving this discards analysis totally. And we can understand that intellect has got limitation, so it cannot go beyond one's stage. So what is the solution? The mind must be aware of total content of it, not the fragment of it, so that the truth is seen and then different action takes place, which is ending and going beyond what is. So emptying of the total consciousness is dying and that is living. Is given a different definition altogether, that total consciousness is dying and that is living. In this discussion, it is very important. Normally we miss this point, or many people miss this point. JK has also said that no attachment or no attachment means it is not brutally cutting off. No attachment means it is not totally brutally cutting off, but understanding of the attachment. Emptying of the mind, here he says, is basically not the complete emptying of the mind, but freedom from it, or understanding in details about it. This is on the 8.16 minutes. If anybody wants to refer, he can refer. Understanding of dependency of acquisition, power, position, anxiety, etc. And emptying the consciousness means the consciousness which has created its own limitations by its content comes to an end. In this, there is touching the root of the fear, terror of not being. Now also question arises, what is immortality? The beauty per se, or only beauty is immortal, and it is not in the field of consciousness. This is what he has said in a nutshell. My views are, definitely here also JK talks of freedom from self or ego. Now questions come in mind. In case of mob or common people, fear of death is fear of death of organism. So how this is addressed? Number one. Number two, JK says you cannot understand death, its immensity, unless there is really freedom from fear. So first, it means one has to be totally free from fear, then only he can understand. In my case, I found I am not having fear of death, but fear of stopping of living and suffering, either when death comes near or otherwise. So for me, it is a fear of suffering. When death will come, okay, there is no issue, I will go. But prior to that, if there is any suffering or this thing, that's what I am fearful. How can mind becomes aware of total conscious, subconscious and unconscious content, as many contents come into awareness only in relationship with people? JK has also said that in relationship only you can know yourself, events, surroundings, etc. So how one can see as a map? This is also very interesting. This is a very key to Krishnamurti's learners, that actually he has given a map of total things and not any particular direction or any specific way. So how we can see the total map in which the totality of the issue is seen at in one shot, and then it will go. These are the points. Maybe Harshad sir can reply to it. Thank you.
Yes, Durga ji, let's hear it.
Just a minute, sir. Good morning, good evening, everybody. Yeah, usually we are meeting in the morning, so yes, sir. It's really heavy stuff, and yeah, I think Dinesh ji has summed it up very well. Yeah, it has lots of points, and I think Krishna ji has gone in detail about the fear. I think fear is one important aspect we all need to understand, why we are so scared of death. In fact, we used to have some small booklets of Krishna ji for children. Then there he says, he has written very clearly that we should introduce this concept of death when the children are small itself. Why we are so scared of it? So because we ourselves are scared, we wanted to hush it up, and we don't want to bring the subject of death to children also. So that is a kind of like a predisposition of our own consciousness. And we take, whatever the life we are leading, the quarrels, the jealousy, the anger, the mood swings, the bickering, and we have just accepted it as a norm. And even in order to lose that also, we are so scared of. And first of all, we need to be aware of what kind of life we are leading in. So he says that is your life, and even if you live like that for 100 years, what's the use of that, and what next? And there's a very fundamental question we need to ask ourselves. So what kind of a life we are leading in, and why do we want this continuity, and why we are so attached to these things? And so he says, attached, we are attached to children, husband, house, property, knowledge, and whatever the little life, we got familiar with, and we got used to, and that is a small, you can say, a small circle we enclose ourselves into, and we continue to live life like that, and we never bother to ask any other questions. So he really makes us understand, question these things. And then he also says about immortality. So what are the things which drag human beings to not to face death? So first one is the fundamental thing is the fear, because we don't want to let go of anything. We are the fear of the unknown, and we are so attached to whatever the things we have, our properties or acquired or knowledge and all. So this fear is a factor. And he says you can't kill it brutally. You can't just wish it away. And he says only in understanding it, only in seeing the whole of it. So then and he says no analysis at all. Analysis is paralysis. So in one glance, in one go, are you able to see this? So that's the one major challenge he throws also. And at one point he says, it is the ending of me. Basically, at one point he clearly says, your consciousness, your content, and content is acquired. It is the common human consciousness, and that it's not easy to wipe it away. It's not easy to empty it. You can't do it. First, choicelessly aware of it. So he brought it to the end, being choicelessly aware of all these aspects of our own consciousness, the way our life we lead our lives. I just want to tell you one personal example, sir. Today in the morning only, I was having some fight with my brothers. I just want to bring some context here, my own personal experiences. So there's the issue of looking after my father. My father is 90-year-old now, and somehow or the other, I don't know, maybe it so happened that whenever there is a need, whenever there is a physical pain and all, I had been the one who had been attending to him, and some of my brothers were never in the scene. So I don't know, why should I take so much of credit for this? And with the result, I started fighting, because maybe the righteous feeling, see, I do my dharma, and you people are not doing that. So when listening to that, that point struck me, sir. How we are attached to the righteous thing, and what is so great about me doing certain things at a certain point of time. Maybe it so happened that I had gone. So why should I have to, criticize my brothers? So this point came to my mind, sir. And even my father, sir. So I feel, personally speaking, sir, I'm quite attached to my father. I feel whatever the values, the unconditional love I have received in my life, I have received from my father. So that kind of a care, attention, and secure feeling of security I have. So somehow I attached to him. And sometimes I feel, okay, if he's lived his life, he's 90, if he passes away, so what? So I had to tell myself, so what he's leading a life of misery, the personal pain, the loneliness. So why do you want it to be continued? So this thought also comes, and then I calm myself. So all this also keep going on in our lives, sir. Because we can't help it, but we can be aware of all these things, sir. That's all I have to say for the time being, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Durga ji.
Yeah. Are you able to hear my voice?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I like to say something about Raman Maharshi. When he was about 17 years old, he went through an experience of death, and it was at a psychological plane. He saw that he was dying, but a part of him which was looking at everything. And at that moment, and this experience came to him just by itself. He was a very healthy boy, and this experience, he learned that he is not the body, he is not the mind, but there is something else which can see clearly whatever the mind and the body is going through. And this experience made him free actually from the fear of death, and it gave him a direction for his future life. And he left his home and he was not worried about anything. So the most important thing is to see that we are not the body, we are not the mind, but there is something else which Krishnaji would call choiceless awareness, or Raman Maharshi may call it true self. And that is just seeing whatever is happening without any reaction, seeing things exactly as they are. And it is possible only when there is a freedom to see whatever the thinking the mind is doing. And in that seeing, there are no problems. Only problems happens when this seeing goes away and we become the content of this thing called I or me. When it comes, then it creates problems. Otherwise, there is just seeing of whatever is happening without any choice, without any interference. So it seems to me that people, even Ramakrishna used to go into samadhi, and it was a different state altogether, in which there was no personal, uh, any thinking was there. And even some scientists, they felt that there was no breathing and no heartbeats during those samadhi. And it used to happen very frequently, and sometimes for a long period, sometimes for a short period. So there is a mystery which only people who are really free from the fear of losing the known, only such people go through this state in which things are seen clearly. And in that, there are no problems. So Krishnaji's language is different, and Raman Maharshi and traditional people, they talk in a different language altogether. But what I get is that this silence, when the mind is very silently looking at what is, that is the real freedom. And in that, there is no duality there. So this Advaita is also comes into picture. There is no duality, only seeing what is, not what should be. Okay, so I'll say enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Prasad sir.
Namaste, sir, everybody.
Yeah.
I was inspired by Madam Durga Rani's comment. You see your, you can see your Krishnaji's teaching in the crucible of life. That is in your relationships with your brothers, father, etc. That is where really we can see whether we are understanding Krishnamurti or really not understanding. This is what I wanted to say about Madam Durga Rani's statement. Next, one thing that has struck me in this video is Krishnaji's comment about beauty. What is beauty? Beauty is not in any of our products, our cathedrals, our temples, our paintings, our music, in none of these things. Beauty is something which is really immortal. What is that immortality? I mean, you have to perceive beauty. It is a beauty that is immortal, not the object of beauty. That distinction is something really striking. I think I cannot explain it further, but as Keats said, truth is beauty, beauty, truth. Something like that. Beauty is inherent in life. And even in our tradition, we say, Satyam Sevam Sundaram. Sundaram is a part of Satyam. Like that. That is one thing, that beauty is immortal, not the objects of beauty. We try to immortalize ourselves through all these objects and through our progeny, etc. As the professor Anderson was saying, it creates problems in family also, because you want a son to immortalize yourself. That is very much prevalent in India. So all this is not immortal. Immortality is the ending of consciousness. Consciousness being the content. That is the root of fear, that your total entity is perishing. That creates fear. That is the root of fear, that I won't be there at all. But that is the reality. And if you want to live in fear, yes, you continue your me. You continue your contents of consciousness. You live with them. That is what we do. Till the last minute, we hang on to our contents, our property, as he calls a blasted bank account. So we hang on to them, but we are attached to them. But he says, let not detachment be a battle. You don't battle to be detached. That is another problem. And so we hang on to our attachments in the last minute, and that is, we live with fear. Because we are attached, we live with fear till the end, and at the end, there is a lot of fear. Either we opt for that type of life, or we understand the map of life, as he calls it, the entire map of your psyche, where you have all these things, all these attachments, detachments, battle for detachment, all these things are there. You see the battle without direction, without moving in any particular direction. A direction is a particular channel. You hang on to some belief. That is a direction. And another small thing is, Krishnaji has removed the idea of resurrection. Removed in the sense, he discounted that idea. There are no 10 people who have seen and avowed that resurrection. So that is one thing which may not be palatable for most Christians. When the Hindu gods are discounted as myths, people are happy. But when this thing happens, that is when the same attitude is taken towards the Christian beliefs, they are not appreciated. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Prasad. Very well said. Yes, Durga ji, please unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Sir, I also have a few questions for you, sir. Dubey, sir. You haven't spoken about your views today. Before that, I just would like to say thank you to Prasad, sir. Sorry, I couldn't attend your last Sunday's program, sir. Though I was very much keen to attend that program. Something or the other happened. That's how our lives are, sir. So entangled with so many concerns, worries. That's our lives, sir, isn't it? Some problems, obligations, it's better we discuss them rather than because understanding them, maybe we are able to feel our way to whatever Krishna ji is saying. Because unless and until we bring it to our day-to-day existence, sir. And thank you for appreciating me, sir. Today, somehow when listening to Krishna ji's today's talk, I also usually take down notes like what Dinesh ji had been doing. He really summarizes it very well. I also used to do that earlier, but today I said, let me just listen to it properly, with all my, listening abilities. So when I was listening to that, then at one point he said righteousness. So you do some certain activity, and maybe you have to do that because of different reasons. Then why to attach so much of importance to it? So that's a very valuable lesson that that came to me, sir. So why I start feeling that, I had done so much and all this, sir. That's just like that. I don't know how far I'm going to stick to that. So I would like to say, sir, I think that's how we learn our lessons, I feel. And because I would just like to ask you, when you go through some crisis in your life, all these problems that you come across in our lives, your somebody says something, your anger, because we all face all these things. Then how do you tackle them, sir? You feel because immediately our emotions come to the core and you lose your temper and all. That I think who is the person who can calm us down, because whatever we have been listening to Krishna ji, so that also is impacting us. Then what I do mostly is I try to calm myself down. Let me just be calm. Let me just keep quiet, and then slowly maybe the right solution arises, right answer comes. So not immediately jump to the whatever that my mood tells me to act upon. That's one thing I would like to share, and I will ask other people also to share this. And one more thing, sir, writing a journal once in a while, I think going through whatever we go through, whatever we listen, that helps a great deal, sir. In understanding our subconscious, unconscious thoughts. Krishna ji says it's the best way to understand yourself is relationships. So I think writing a journal of our random thoughts and whatever our lessons or insights, whatever we go through, I think that helps a great deal in understanding ourselves, sir. I just want to say that much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Durga ji. I think, if you listen to Krishna sincerely, maybe something rubs on and, a sense of awareness does come your way. And, like you yourself said that you are taking care of your father, and at one time you felt that why should you only take the trouble and not your brother? But then you realize that, you are doing it because you love him. You feel for him. That's why you're doing it. Whether your brothers do it or not, you will continue to do it. So that is the awareness of your love or your attachment or whatever you call it towards him. I want to say a few things. This is a very very good video. It has profound message of what Krishna talks about in general, because he has summed up so very well that if you can be aware of the whole landscape of your conditionings, the whole content of your consciousness. I can only tell you about my life that when you are watching without any evaluation, the contents, a few of them do drop off. But how do you completely erase the consciousness? This seems something which is too intellectual for me to understand. And I'll say that uh, being with teaching for almost 4 decades now, I have all wrong, disorder in my consciousness, like anger, greed, anxiety, anxious, and all these things. But the awareness follows it immediately. So the impact of those disorders get greatly reduced. So in tradition, they say, control your anger. I don't see anything wrong in it, because from the societal point of view, it may be a good idea to control it in whatever method you follow. But for Krishna, it was, I don't know how he did it, because I never saw him with anybody, about anybody having a prejudice when he dealt with people. And he could say the harshest of things to people who have done valuable service to the foundation. Like, Mr. Balasundaram, who was the principal of Rishi Valley School. Harshad Bhai may know him more than I do. He was there for 18 years as principal. And Krishna came from US one time, and somebody said something about him, that he was very strict. He was not, allowing children to go to their parents and so on. And he asked Balasundaram, "Are you flowering?" And he was aghast, and he said, "If you're not flowering, then you don't have to stay here in Rishi Valley." and asked him to leave. And somebody who was there, he told Krishna that, "Sir, Balasundara was very hurt the way you talked to him and all that." And Krishna didn't say anything. And in the evening, when Balasundara was walking, normally Balasundara used to walk with Krishna, but he was hurt, so he was quite way behind, 15, 20 steps. So Krishna turned back, went to him, and he said, "If you are hurt, it is your problem, not mine." So I really don't know, but you learn so much about life by just watching him speak and all that. And the kind of energy he puts into every word that he says is difficult to explain. Really difficult to explain.
It's phenomenal.
But, yes. But I think if you are aware to whatever extent is possible, and that is possible only when you are, like you said, Krishna used to say that, write down your thoughts. He will also say, slow down.
Yes.
Those are the pointers he gave to people, children, and even adults, that these are the things that are required to be aware. Awareness can't come if you are always in a rush to do things, So I'll say that be yourself. Don't try to change. Be what you are, and watch things as closely as possible without evaluation. That may help. Something may come up.
Yes, sir. We only can do that much. The journey matters, sir.
Yes,
it is not
right,
the destination.
right. Exactly.
Maybe
There is
also
no-
very, very small baby steps, but
Yes.
nevertheless they are what they are.
Yes, and there is no destination really.
There's no destination. It is the journey that matters, that counts. We can do only that much.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there are quite a few hands, so we'll go to Mr. Rajendran. Yes, sir. Please unmute yourself.
Sir, thank you, sir. Good evening to all. So, even though I listened to this talk previously 1 or 2 times, so as Krishnaji often told, every time, even though it is repetition, but every time we listen to him, we see something.
We lost you. Mr. Rajendran is, I think, some problem with his audio. We'll go to Harshad Bhai, then we'll come back to Mr. Rajendran. Yes.
Yeah. Are you able to hear?
Yes.
Yeah. I would say that many people who worked very closely with Krishnamurti, they had a very difficult time, because Krishnamurti was like a fire, and he expected a lot from the principal and the directors. And I know some of them, they had a very bad time after they left the school. So in spite of being with Krishnamurti teachings, knowing all whatever he has said, it doesn't make a person free, because it seems that as long as we are living in the plane of thinking and feeling, we cannot see the whole of it. Only when there is this awakening of intelligence or awareness, then through that awareness, everything what we are is revealed very, very clearly, without any conflict, without any desire to change, only to see, and that seeing becomes the action. So this is the teachings of Krishnamurti, not summarizing what Krishnamurti has said and giving, but to really come to that state where we can see without any conflict whatever is happening, and it doesn't create any problem as long as there is awareness is there. It's only when there is no awareness, then all that stirring up of emotions and anger and fear and all that starts. So I would say that in spite of reading Krishnamurti for many, many years, it's not that that awakening of intelligence happens in human beings. Even people who worked very close with Krishnaji, they had lots of conflict even later. So all we can do is to look at our own life, not even make Krishnamurti into an ideal or trying to follow Krishnamurti, but to look at ourselves as we are. And only where people who are very passionate to look inward, and they can be alone, can be silent, very honest, then there is this seeing of what is as it is unfolding in our life. So it is like reading the book of our own life while it is being written, not at the end of the day, but to be in touch with whatever is happening within us. And that is the real challenge of Krishnamurti teachings, not to explain what he is saying, but to really look at our own life. Okay, I said something I like to say about the beauty, that real beauty is when this self is not. Generally, it is said beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, but Krishnamurti says beauty is when the beholder is not, when this feeling of I is not, then it is really looking at the flower. It's not me looking at the flower, but it is seeing the flower or the face of a human being. So this is a marvelous thing, because everything ends up in this state of not being, which is a psychological death, which is a real beauty, which is a real freedom, is a happiness. Everything is that when the self is not. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Rajendran, please. We lost you in the middle.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Is it clear now, sir?
Yes, yes, it is.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening to all. See, actually, this video I already listened 1 or 2 times, but every time, even though Krishnaji often told, even though I repeat the same thing, but every time you hear, you will see something new. So this time, as Prasadji pointed out, beauty is not in the beautiful object. So Harshad Bhai has rightly pointed out, beauty is there when there is no observer or self or thought. So yes, suppose if I take it as a challenge to see the beauty free from the object, then that is an effort. That is an attempt. That is an effort. The thought is there, observer is there. Then we will never see that. So that is a very important thing. And Krishnaji, another thing is ending of self and me. And as Krishnaji pointed out in numerous talks, that there's self is the creation of thought. So we also observe we also see in our day-to-day activities, when there is no self, and only when the thought moves in, the self has raises its hand, raises its head. So here he actually, so whether when the self is created by thought, how we can end the self without ending the thought? Thought cannot be ended, because that is also an effort. But when we see the tyranny of thought, that seeing may end it or something. I cannot. I don't know what is the word to use it. The perception of the seeing will be doing, and the seeing will free oneself from the thought. Suppose that I am just by observing oneself, I see the thought. The thought is the rising. So let it rise and go. So I have to be alert. Expecting that this fellow has started his movement and is going to land us in trouble, and the thought results in some conclusion and some action. That action will be limited action. When one is so alert in that regard, maybe we may be very cautious about is the thought is giving so much of input. So it is always moving from one direction to another. If we follow that, then that is finished. That is a dangerous thing. If we, then that awareness itself may help. And immortality is not in field of time. The immortality is it. So in other way, Krishnaji is telling immortality is time is taught me, and immortality is only when one is free from self. That is immortality. Because the time is created by thought. Thought is time, and it wants its own immortality. The thought wants its own immortality. So only when the true immortality, as Krishna is telling, is not in the field of time. So immortality is free from. Is it free from the self or ending of the self? I wonder. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I think there's no point getting into the words too much, because we have all experienced a state where thought becomes very quiet. And at that moment, there is no self. We all have experienced it, maybe for a fleeting second, but we have had that experience, all of us. But explaining it intellectually, using words to do that, will not serve the purpose and will not do justice to what Krishna has talked about. Yes, Dinesh, we have 2 minutes, so you can be fast and brief.
Sir, I withdraw because there is no time now.
No, we have 2 minutes. You can make a comment and then we'll close.
There are 3 things basically. Let me shortly say. One comment he has made in the discussion that family is dangerous, but no family is disastrous from society's point of view. That is one thing. And number 2, we see in our body a lot of daily many cells form and many cells die. So there is and still there is a continuity. So there is every possibility that after that there should be a continuity. Third thing, the comment was made that why I write. Basically, I take it on. I would just like to express my views. Already Krishnamurti's teachings are scattered, and when anybody goes to it, the first he tries to use intellect, and it is very difficult to for an intellect to see in a systematic way, because intellect requires a systematic way, and that system is not available there. So one has to break his head. So I think we should also make substance of whatever or gist of whatever the dialogue is there, and I think that will benefit to all. That's what my views are. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Dinesh, one thing I must, I don't know whether I can use the word warn, because Krishna's usage of words are very different at different times. And if I can say so, Krishna was not a man of great scholarship, but what he said was from his own perception, his own experiences. So it was not something from any academic background that he spoke, and he never prepared his lectures. I remember a talk, there is a dialogue, if you can read the book, The Ending of Time, there is a dialogue between Krishna and Dr. David Bohm, where Krishna says that thought is corruption. And Dr. Bohm says, sir, do you want to say that every thought is corruption? He said, no, only psychological thought. So if you just take the first word, you will say that thought is corruption. So don't go by just words alone. Go beyond the words, go in between the lines rather than just the words. I think
so one has to tune up. One has to tune up with the Krishnamurti and tries to understand what Krishnamurti is basically. Then I think the things will be more clear.
I think it's important to understand ourselves, not Krishnamurti. This is what I'll say.
Yes.
Thank you, Dubeji.
Thank you.
Dubeji. Thank you very
can...
much, Dubeji. On 10th, we will having Chidanandji, and then on 20th, we will be having 20th August. On Sunday, we will be having Richa. She will be giving a topic in a day or so. So we will inform you. Chidanandji, next Thursday, Chidanandji.
So that means 6th and 13th, there will be no Sunday talk, right?
Okay, definitely.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.